So when we think of oceans, we think of carbon dioxide pollution. We think of carbon dioxide increasing in our atmosphere. The other thing we talk about often is the acidification of ocean. So the whole idea here is that what is happening with that? So if I'm going to put here a link to a video I did a moment ago on pH and what does it mean to have an acidic solution or a basic solution and how neutralization happens. But if you go here, I'm going to show you this one. Perfect. So this is from the European Agency. And what's interesting is we see that the ocean water is alkaline. So it's alkaline due to the erosion of rocks and chemicals in the last tens of millions of years. And what happens here is that we have an alkaline solution. So if you look here in the 80s, we had a pH that was about, on average, from the European Space Agency, about 8.12. If you go about 40 years later, we have a pH that is about 8.05, 8.055. So you could see here that the acidity is increasing in the ocean. So that's the first thing to look into. And that is due from the researchers' part of thing is that if you have an increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere with the water, it creates carbonic acid, which can increase indeed the acidity of the ocean. So I have here an example of this one here, pH scale, that says that if you think of the 1870, we had a pH value that was 8.18, so a bit more alkaline than right now at 8.05. But here, the trend, if it continues from this source, and I'm going to put the links in the comments below, shows that in 2100, we will have a pH that will be below 8. So here we have a trend that shows there's an increase in acidity of our ocean. Now, I have some other information to show that is interesting to see. So let's see if I can make this a bit bigger. No, so that's not this one. Good. So here you have some graphs. On the right side, you have the pH of different areas. And on the left here, you have dissolved carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So what's interesting here is that you can see that in the Bermuda, here there's an increase trend from the 80s all the way to, let's say, 2015. There's an increase or an increased trend of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, some of you will say, how come there's ups and downs like this? Because in the summer, because of photosynthesis, the quantity of carbon dioxide is taken out of the atmosphere. And in the winter, what happened here is that there's less photosynthesis because either it's colder or in the northern hemisphere, when you have the winter, there's no photosynthesis happening, and therefore the carbon dioxide is increasing in the atmosphere. But overall, you can see like a small increase here in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And here, if you look at the acidity of the Bermuda area, there's also a decrease. So here you had maybe a midpoint of about 8.10 as a pH, and now you have here at a midpoint at 8.07. So you can see here. So is that the only reason? That's a good question. But if you take these two pieces of information, there is a correlation, or that's what looks like a correlation. If you look in the Canary Islands, you have here an increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and you can see here in the acidity, there is an overall decrease. Well, it's a weak decrease, but it still shows a negative trend. If you look at the Carriacou Basin, increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and here there's a decrease in pH. As you can see here, you had a peak in carbon dioxide, which was not on this graph, and here there's a decrease under 8 of the ocean, which is not correlated here on this graph. So here we need more data, but it shows an interesting correlation. In Hawaii, we can see that there's an increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and in the area, we can see a visible decrease in pH. Now, what's interesting, I remember when I was teaching science about 20 years ago, I remember where we had we're discussing that a concentration of carbon dioxide close to 350 particle per million per billion. So here, here's partial pressure in micro atmosphere. So here, these are most likely ppm or ppb. So that's a good question. Particle per billions or particle per. So I don't have the units, so that's something I would have to look into. You can certainly go to the website as well. But I remember at 350, it was getting high for carbon dioxide. And they were saying in the textbook I was using back then that having a concentration of 400 ppbs in the atmosphere was something that was dangerous. As you can see, there's an increase. We are at about 400 right now. So if you think of 40 years ago, 20 years ago, scientists were worried, and you could see that the trend keeps on getting bigger. Another one that I have here, so this one here is from the, let's see, from the NOAA. So that one is from the Ocean Association. Let's see if I can, I forget the acronym, and I apologize for that. But you could see here that we have, so if we have here 8.1 right in the middle, at yellowish, we can see here that we have more alkaline ocean water in the northern part here. And as we're going further south, here in the Hawaii's and a few other places, or the coast of the United States, we can see that it is somewhat getting more acidic. And you're going to say, how come it's not all over? It takes money and resources to get the pH everywhere in the world. So sometimes that's something we have to keep in mind. Sometimes we have a lot of data, but sometimes we don't always have all the resources needed to have all the data that we would need. So on this, I thought this was interesting, and hopefully you have enjoyed this perspective. If you have any questions related to ocean acidification or clarification questions, please put them in the comments below. And on this, I'm going to see you in another video related to the environment, and I'll see you there.